Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to part 3 to my platformer shooter series. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to add a stretch and squash to our character to make him feel not quite so static as he's moving around the room. And I'm also going to show you how to use alarms to create bullets that fire while you hold down the mouse button instead of having to click them. So let's get started. First, let's do the bullet creation in an alarm. Now, we want to change our global left pressed event into a global left button event. So come to change event inside of our player object and do key pressed left. Mouse, left mouse, left down right here. Now when we run the game, we're going to be creating bullets very quickly, and it should be global left down. Change event, mouse, global left down. Now we're going to be creating bullets very quickly, way too fast, and this is not what we want, even though it looks kind of cool. So we want to give the bullets a cooldown. So we're going to come into the create event, and inside of here we're going to set an alarm. Alarms in GameMaker are set to a value, and then they count down until they reach 0, and then they fire, then they go to -1 and stay at -1. And that's how alarms work. So we're going to set an alarm. First, we're going to set a cooldown amount. So let's do bullet cooldown underscore. And I'm going to set this to room speed. Now that will make our bullets fire once every second because our room speed is 60 frames per second. And we don't really want to do our bullet. We don't want it to wait 60 seconds or 60 frames in order to shoot a bullet. So we're going to change this value. I'm going to divide it by 4. Okay? Then we're going to set an alarm. Alarm 0 is equal to bullet cooldown. Now this alarm right here, there are multiple different alarms. So you could do alarm 1 or alarm 2, and I think it goes all the way up to alarm 15 if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked to see what the limit was. That used to be the limit, but we only need one alarm, so we're going to do alarm 0 right now. So we know that this alarm is going to start at 15 frames, and then it's going to count down from 15 until it reaches 0, and then it's going to fire the alarm. Now what does fire the alarm mean? Well, that just means that it's going to run our alarm event. So if we come into alarm right here, we can actually have this do something. We can say show debug message alarm. Okay, and if we run our game, what you're going to see is it's going to show the alarm after 15 frames. See down here, it printed alarm instead of our output. But it doesn't do it again. And that's because the alarm went down to 0, printed alarm, and then went to -1 and stopped. So what could we do? Well, we would want to reset the alarm, right? Alarm 0 equals bullet cooldown. Why does it think bullet is a variable? That's a little bit odd that it thinks that, but that's fine. Anyways, in our alarm, we reset the alarm once it fires. Now if we run the game, you can see it's going to print alarm every 15 frames down here. Now we could create a bullet, but we don't want to create a bullet every 15 frames. We only want to create a bullet every 15 frames that the player is holding down the mouse button, right? So we don't actually even need this alarm. So let's get rid of this event right here, and I'll show you why. Delete. We're going to use the alarm, but we're going to use it differently. We're going to come into here and we're going to say if alarm 0 is equal to 0, fire the bullet. And that's if we're holding down the left mouse button. Let's run the game and try it. Okay, we're holding down the left mouse button and it's not working. Let's find out why. Well, the problem is we're setting our alarm, if you remember, and then it's going 15 frames and then going to 0. But then the alarm goes to -1 after it's hit 0. And my guess is if we press the left mouse button really fast, we might be able to catch it. But the problem is we're not resetting the alarm once we've fired the bullet. So we need to set the cooldown after firing the bullet. So alarm 0 equals bullet cooldown. Let's run this one more time, see if this works. And we still can't create bullets. What is going on here? Well, it turns out that even if you use the alarm in this way, like checking to see if the alarm is 0, if you don't have the alarm event, it won't actually run. So we need to add the alarm event back in. So come in, go to alarm, add alarm 0. And inside of here, we can just put a comment that just says bullet cooldown alarm. We don't even have to write any code. We just have to have this right here available. We have to add the event and have a description in here so that the alarm event actually gets triggered. And now it should be working. So we're doing something wrong still here if it's not working. The left down event, we want to create a bullet if alarm 0 is equal to 0. Now the issue is, and this is an interesting thing to point out, we only reset the alarm right here. We only reset the alarm if our alarm is equal to 0. The problem is if we're not pressing the left mouse button when our alarm is equal to 0, then it will be set to -1. Okay? And then when we come in to try and fire a bullet, our alarm is equal to -1. We never reset the alarm, so we've locked ourselves out of fighting a bullet. So we can't fire a bullet now because we've locked ourselves out. So because of this, I always use less than or equal to 0 for this purpose right here. That way, if the alarm's -1, that's fine too. We still want to fire a bullet and then reset the cooldown. So less than or equal to 0. And now you can see we can fire the bullets and they're firing at the correct rate. And I want to make our bullets move faster. 5 is too slow. Let's do 8. 5 is almost as fast as the player moves. And that's a little bit faster there. Okay. And we'll change our cooldown to be divided by 6. That should give us 10 frames since our room speed is 60. And that's looking pretty good. We can just hold down the left mouse button and fire a bunch of bullets. Now let's add the squish and stretch to our character. And we're going to do this using the scale of the character. Now if we come into the draw right here, what we need to do in order to do this is we need to create our own scale variables. So let's create some here. Scale variables. We'll say x scale is equal to image x scale, y scale is equal to image y scale. I'm going to give these underscores and actually do an underscore here as well. Okay, so we're setting our x scale right there. And if we come into our draw, instead of doing flipped and 1 here for drawing the sprite, we'll just do x scale and y scale. Then we need to make sure that our x scale is multiplied by flipped. So times flipped. That way we continue to flip the x scale that we're currently using. So all we've done is set up our own variables for scale that we can control. Now if we come into our step event, inside of here at the very end of this event, we want to say x scale equals lerp, and the value that we want to move to, or the value that we want to move, is going to be x scale. The value that we want to move to is image x scale, and the amount is going to be 0.1. 0.2, we'll make it move a little faster. Now we're going to do the same with the y value. So we'll say y scale equals lerp y scale image y scale 0.2. That's a percentage we want to move towards it. So this is just going to be move back to normal scale. So we're going to basically slowly move back to the normal scale value. And you'll be able to see this if in the create event we set our x scale equal to something like image x scale times 4, which is going to be really, really weird to see. It was a little bit fast, kind of hard to see that. So if we change our linear interpolate value right here to like 0.05 for the x, you might be able to see it better. And it looks like I've got an error here. Oh, I've got 2 dots there for 0.05. Okay, 0.05. And there you go. You can see it started out really, really big, but then it slowly went back to normal. And that's what we want. We want it to go back to normal in here. This is going to take our scale, our x scale, and slowly approach the normal x scale of 1 or whatever we set it to. So maybe we'll set this to 1 because 0.2 does seem kind of fast. So 0.1, and we'll set this back to just a normal x scale. But the benefit is now if we want to say, for example, when we jump right here, we can also set our x scale. X scale equals image x scale. And this is the wrong version there. Underscore, there we go. X scale equals image x scale times 0.6. So that's going to make our character a little bit skinnier when he's jumping. And we also want to make our character a little bit taller. So y underscore scale equals image y scale times 1.2. And that will make our character a little bit taller when we press the jump key. You can see when we jump, our character stretches out. but then he approaches back to the normal values. And I might actually do 0.8 here on the X scale, just so it's not quite so much. Maybe 1.4 on the Y scale. There we go. That's better, I think. And then we can do the same thing for when we land. And the easiest way to check a landing is to go after you've already moved. Check for landing. And you have to do this after you've moved because we're going to be using the X previous and Y previous. Well, specifically in this case, just the Y previous value. But if you want to use Y previous, you have to make sure you use it after you've already moved. And you can see we've moved right here, so we can check for a landing. We can say if place meeting x, y plus 1, object solid. So if there's currently a collision under us, and place meeting, and not place meeting, x, y previous plus 1, object solid. Then we're landing. And this works because we're checking to see if our current position has a solid object under it, if there's ground under it. But if our previous position didn't have a solid object under it. So if there's one under us now, but there wasn't one under us before, then we know we're landing. And inside of here, we can do x scale equals maybe 1.4. Y scale equals 0.8, just like we did it before. But we want to make sure and multiply them by the image X scale and image Y scale. And you can see I flipped him too. Now we're making him fatter and shorter. So we're going to say image X scale times and image Y scale times. And the only reason I'm multiplying by the image Y scale and image X scale is just in case you were to scale this character later, then this would still work. If you just set it to these numbers, that would work as well, but this just sets it so that later if you were to scale the character in the room or something, this would all still work because we're checking the scale before we multiply by it. There you go, we've got a nice stretch and hop. Or squash, stretch and squash. Now, it doesn't look very good on the landing. And the reason is because our origin is still in the center. And when you scale, it scales from the origin. So we're squashing the player, but he's squashing in a way that brings up his feet above where he's landing because it's squashing him from both ends, but we only want to squash from the top. And the way to fix that is to set his origin. We still want it to be centered, but we want to do bottom center. Like this. Okay? And run the game. That should move it down by about whatever pixels. Now you can see the squash looks just right on the landing. But the problem is it's moved our gun down now because the gun was based on the origin. So all we have to do to fix that is come back into our player and make sure that on our gun here, instead of just doing, let's see, in the draw event, on our gun here, instead of just doing the Y value, we need to subtract from the Y value. And I think 16 should be a good amount. That will get us back close to the center. Since our character is 34 pixels high. 17 would actually be better, I guess, to be exactly centered. So we'll just do minus 17. Actually, the other option, which is a better one, is just to do sprite. Height minus or divided by 2. And I'm not actually sure whether the scale affects the sprite height. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. And we need that inside of our Y, or inside of our bullet creation event as well. And it doesn't seem to be affected by the sprite's height. So now we've got a nice little squash and stretch on our jump. And it just really makes the character feel a lot more alive and part of the world. Like the actions that he takes actually affect the world and his image. So when he jumps, stretches out, and when he lands, squashes down a little bit, it makes it just feel a lot better. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this part 3. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure and like the video and share it with your friends. And I will have more videos coming soon. I'll talk to you guys later.